This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fyodor Ship III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. All right, our guest today was a White House political appointee during the Barack Obama presidency. Today, he wants to be a catalyst in the intersection of sports, the private sector, and social responsibility. He received his Master's of Professional Studies from Georgetown University and a Bachelor of Arts in Sports Management from the University of Michigan. Hailing from the Metropolitan-Detroit area, he is currently the Director of Social Impact and DEI Strategy at Buzzer, a technology company that delivers personalized live moments in sports to fans. He uses the power of sports to improve race relations and give social progress. We proudly welcome Dexter Mason to the DDP. Dexter, welcome, sir.
No, thank you, brother. No, thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor and privilege. Anytime the intersection of Detroit, University of Michigan, this is home for me. So this is exactly where I want to be. So thank you for having me once again.
Go Blue. We appreciate
Go Blue,
having
yes.
you here. So what sparked your interest in a career in sports?
Yeah, honestly, it goes back to my time when I was a kid. I'm a big basketball fan, big basketball junkie. I had hoop dreams. I wanted to make it to the NBA. I wanted to be the next Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, whoever, Chris Webber. But unfortunately, in 7th grade, I actually got cut from my middle school basketball team. So I was one of the last cuts, did not make it. I walked home in tears, walking back home, had to explain to my parents I got cut. And my parents, I have the greatest parents in the world, and I really appreciate their candor. I'm at age 13, but they said, hey, you're probably not going to make the NBA. You probably are not going to be the next Michael Jordan, but you still can work in sports. You can own a team. You can run a team. You can have a career in sports off the court, off the field. And so that kind of exposed me to the whole sector of sports business, sports management, and I knew that when I got to high school and, eventually doing my college search, I wanted to go to a school that offered a sport management major, which is more the business side of the industry.
That's cool. Yeah, I like to think about young people. There's a whole career beyond just playing in sports. The whole thing, it's a whole ecosystem. That's
a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem that is global now. Yes.
Okay. How is working in different major sports leagues prepared you for your career today?
Yes. I mean, working, whether it's in college athletics, I had a chance to work for the student manager, work for the men's basketball team at the University of Michigan as well as student manager. So my experience also been with Major League Baseball, Detroit Pistons, et cetera. And for me, I think every experience, I really learned two things. One, how to be a great teammate. I know it's very cliche, but just how to be a great teammate, support maybe other people's vision, other companies' vision, and be play what role you're supposed to play in that project, in that initiative, within that organization. But then also when to be a leader, when to step up, hopefully, when to empower others, inspire others to follow the vision that you're trying to lead, the initiative you're trying to lead. So I think working, even though I wasn't always on the court or on the field, just working in sports, being part of teams, really allowed me to kind of use those skills in whether it's in politics, sports, business, and even in my academic career too.
Okay. So what was your experience like working in the Obama administration, and what was your role? Man,
the Obama administration, that's still one of the greatest experiences of my life, once in a lifetime experience. Mm. I mean, just kind of give you some more context. My senior year in high school in 2008 is when President Obama was elected. So I missed the presidency in terms of being able to vote by a few weeks. I'm born in December. The election was in November. And so for me, despite not being able to vote, I still knocked on doors of my parents, knocking on different communities, getting people registered to vote and getting to the polls. And for me, I just love that mobilization of community, of people. And I think that really sparked my public service interest and political interest and race relations and everything like that. But yeah, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I actually... Candidly, I applied for an internship 4 times. I got it on my 4th time in graduate school at Georgetown. I applied many times when I was at the University of Michigan and was rejected every single time. And so hopefully persistence actually worked out in my favor. In my last semester in grad school, I was an intern in the Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs. And so I worked on the private sector engagement team. So anytime the president, the vice president Biden at the time, and senior level officials engage with or intersect with the private sector. So Fortune 500 companies, CEOs, Silicon Valley, small businesses, entrepreneurs. Anytime the president interacted with that community, the team I worked on as an intern, we all handled all those affairs and engagements. We held meetings, convenings, and so that was just really great exposure. There was a lot of times as an intern, I was clearly the youngest and most junior person in the rooms, but it would be President Obama along with 20 Fortune 50 CEOs, and the whole goal was really using the private sector to advance the president's agenda, whether it's increasing the gender equity pay, especially for women, expanding family medical leave as well, and just really trying to find ways to raise the minimum wage. A lot of issues that Congress was not passing, candidly. Yeah. It was stuff our team was trying to use to be more creative. How can we advance the president's agenda in another way, in another sector? So I served as an intern for 4 months, and then I actually switched over full time as a staff assistant in the Office of Management and Administration, and I really worked on a lot of the larger events that happen on the White House complex and managed a lot of those logistics as soon as even the invites that go out to the people coming in. So some of the events were the Easter egg roll, or when Pope Francis came back in 2015, or when sports teams won championships, I would help to support a lot of those events. So it was really cool to see, as a sports fan and a basketball fan, seeing a lot of the athletes and teams that came in to visit the White House at that time.
That's cool. So you actually got to plan the White House Easter egg hunt?
So I don't take credit for planning everything. I definitely help support a lot of the initiatives, and we have a huge run of show that goes through every single kind of minute by minute, and what gates people come in, and whole Secret Service and all that. So I definitely played a role in part of the plan execution. But yes, it was really cool.
That's dope. When I was a little kid, I wanted to go to that.
We got to get you go. No, adults still.
I always thought that Easter egg thing was so cool.
It's so funny because I really feel like adults now, when I was working there, I see adults bringing their kids and their children. They have more fun. I feel like it's like they wanted to go because they probably didn't have an opportunity to go as children and be able to bring their kids there. And we even did the trick or treating for the White House. So the First Lady Michelle Obama and President Obama would pass out candy. We helped with that. I dressed up as a Halloween costume, passing out candy with them. And so it was just really cool experience, just seeing people coming to the White House. It is the people's house, and really seeing people's faces when they come in and shaking the president's hand, and just that's all what it's about, really, is just serving others. So it was really great, and a privilege and honor to be part of that administration.
That's really awesome. Now, it seems to me that you've been able to leverage the connections you've made over time very well. Yeah. So how valuable has networking been to you in your career development?
Honestly, I think very vital. I think end of the day, everything's about relationships and, kind of who you know. I mean, I really give it back to my parents. They really, treating people with respect. Doesn't matter if they're a senior level person or head of organization. They could be the receptionist. I mean, I go back to my mom in particular. She was a receptionist for most of her early career when she was pregnant with my older brother, had my older brother, being a single mother, and marrying my dad shortly after. And for me, my parents always, treat people with respect regardless of who they are, what they do. You never know, that person could be the boss in the future. And just honestly, just humanity and treat people with respect. So for me, Bill, I have a lot of great friends, a lot of great relationships, exposure, a lot due to the University of Michigan, candidly, that now we kind of seen the fruits of the labor. So I guess networking is very important. I really look at it as relationship building, candidly, and I kind of look at that as approach. Network, I usually think there is like a transactional kind of into it, and so I kind of look at relationship building, just treating people with respect, having common interests, finding common ground, and helping people out. And so that's what I've noticed in my career early on, because I know I'm not maybe the smartest in the room sometimes, maybe not the most talented, but I'm definitely hopefully one of the hardest working, and really using kind of that sports analogy, being a great teammate and win the lead, and kind of using some of those relationship building skills to kind of advance my career so far.
That's cool. You worked for a president. You worked for a billionaire real estate mogul.
Yes. Yes.
Excuse me. What led to your interest in being part of social change?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to my time in high school, just mobilizing, communities to vote, even though I was not eligible to vote. And then my senior year in college, it was the first time I was able to vote in the presidential election. So that was President Obama's re-election in 2012. And so for me, I was part of a black fraternity on campus, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And my fraternity, along with other fraternity sororities on campus, Black Student Union, NAACP, et cetera, that was the first presidential election we all participate in for the most part. And so it was really great for us to mobilize our classmates, our communities to vote, get registered to vote, especially a lot of folks that might have been from out of state or even live in Detroit but voting in Ann Arbor instead, or vice versa, just really educating why it's important for us to engage, and also just from a historical perspective, voting for a black president, for us, it was just representation matters, and it was just really, really cool to be part of that experience. And so for me, I had this kind of like tussle or two parallel tracks in college. I majored in sport management, business side of sports, interning in sports, but also I had this political bug on the end, and I really thought it was a hobby. I didn't really think that you could intersect both of them. And so for me, by the time my senior year, I was trying to think about what I want to do after college, and really I had these two passions. Let me at least explore if there is an intersection, and if not, how can I create it? And that's really what happened. And I really believe Nelson Mandela said it best. He actually thinks sports is the most powerful, tool or vehicle to, break down barriers, even barriers stronger than a government can do. And so that's something he's been really famous about. I know they made a whole movie on Invictus and rugby and everything after that. And so, for me, I really believe in that quote and kind of using the power of sports to unify people, bring people together. And if you go into a sporting event, you'll see the most diverse background of people in terms of, doesn't matter, social, economical class, race, gender, etc. We both want to root for the Pistons or University of Michigan. We both love Tom Brady, Jim Harbaugh, whoever, Juwan Howard. We all have that fandom, and that's, I think, a really common common bond that really can hopefully make some real progress and change.
I gotta we gotta find a Juwan Howard bobblehead for the
table. Yeah, no, we gotta get one for the table. Yeah,
find a Juwan Howard.
I was gonna add, we'll get one. We'll get one.
We gotta get one.
Yeah.
So, and last time I saw you, you changed jobs since then.
Yes.
But you worked for an organization called Rise.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Rise and what your role there was.
Yeah, Rise was a very unique time, and I actually give credit to Stephen Ross, who's the founder of Rise, kind of having the foresight. I think he believed in the same thing in the power of sports. I know he's the owner of the Miami Dolphins and obviously a big, donor to the University of Michigan athletic department in particular as well. And so he created Rise, which at the time stood for the Ross Initiative in Sports for Equality. Now the name is officially Rise, R-I-S-E. But it was an organization that uses the power of sports to improve race relations. And it brought together the entire sports community. It was the first kind of nonprofit really to bring the commissioners of every single major professional sports league together on a board. And so he, kind of went around to every league, hey, I'm going to fund this, off my own money. I really believe in the power of sports. I would love everybody's buy-in and support. And so that's what happened. So I joined in 2016. 2016 was a very unique time in our country's, history in terms of political and social context and commentary. I joined in June 2016 Rise. I was leading a lot of the events and programming for the organization and based here in Detroit, which was really great. But what I think 6 weeks after I joined, Colin Kaepernick started kneeling. 3 months after that, President Trump was elected, and we saw this kind of resurgence of athletes' activism and athletes using their platform for change, and you really saw the true worlds colliding of sports and politics and social change. And so for me, being there for 3 years and kind of being an intersection, we did a lot of initiatives around voting and civic engagement and mobilizing the sports community and fans to get out to vote in 2018. We done a lot of programs and even off-the-record conversations with professional sports teams on how to, talk about race in the locker room and how especially different athletes are comfortable sharing their views, some are not. We've created playbooks on how, teams and athletes can really leverage their platform and really be educated on a lot of these issues. We brought in thought leaders, and so it was a really great experience. Had a chance to go to a few Super Bowls at my time, Final Fours, et cetera. And so for me as a sports fan, I really felt like I was living the dream in terms of that intersection of sports and social change.
So I'm curious. I've never had the pleasure of meeting Stephen M. Ross. He's originally from Detroit.
Yes.
He's a Michigan alum.
Yep.
He starts this organization about racial equity in sports, yet he's getting sued by a former coach for racism. Don't you find that kind of ironic? Yeah,
it's ironic. I mean, I can't speak on the current, what's going on there in terms of, but it's definitely ironic, but also just shows us some of the complexities in our society once again, where sometimes even you saw in 2020, a lot of corporations saying Black Lives Matter, right? And then you see their board or their C-suite candidly are not reflective of that statement. And so that's why I think, there's only so much I can control in terms of the work I do. I really believe in the work that Rise is continuing to do now and the power of sports to affect that change. I do think it is, just unfortunate unfortunate, the whole situation where, once again, black and brown folks, women trying to, progress in the sports arena are having issues where there's shamed interviews and, do not feel like they're tokenized. And so I think when I was actually in grad school at Georgetown, I actually wrote my capstone project and thesis on the Rooney Rule and how to improve it and strengthen it. And so for me, it has always been something I thought the tool was powerful, but it has been weaponized, unfortunately, over the last few years.
And just thinking of sports and society and change, you have any thoughts on the Brittany Griner situation?
Yeah, I do believe. It's just sad that she's over there. I don't know all the behind the scenes what's going on. Candidly, the stuff I'm reading, we're all kind of seeing in news. It seems like the goal is her not to be used as a pawn with a lot of the, issues with the, invasion in Ukraine. And so I do believe, just knowing some of the folks at the WNBA work at the NBA league office, commissioner's office, I know they're definitely are, using every tool in their box to work with the State Department to bring her home. I think I read this morning that, she has 9 days left in terms of her court appearance. So that might be the earliest hopefully she can get out. But it is sad that, WNBA just kicked off, their another season last week and, she's not there. This could be compared to if, God forbid, this happened to a player like Chris Paul or LeBron James. People don't realize the magnitude of how much she means to the league and to the sport. And so it's really unfortunate. And I hope that, I've been praying every day and hoping that she does get home. And I know there's been, different advocacy. The league is donating, hundreds of thousands of dollars to her nonprofit and different efforts to help continue her legacy and presence. But yeah, I do believe in the government's doing everything they can to bring her home right now.
I think it's just a really strange situation.
It's so strange, and I don't think people realize how it is over there. Yeah.
And I also just wonder how, what would the reaction be if she weren't an African American lesbian basketball player over there? If she were a white woman, heterosexual basketball player, would there be more of an uproar? If there were Chris Paul being held over there,
it was a male.
It'd be more of an uproar. It's just.
It's unfortunate. I think there's so many. And once again, it shows like how this pandemic is done. It's just shed on light on so many inequities, disparities, stereotypes. We're seeing the situation is another classic case of that. And also too, the fact that she has to play over there. Brittany has to play in her off season, that's actually her season. Off season, the WNBA season, candidly, because in terms of supplementing income, getting more income, she has to play, and a lot of these women have to play in these countries that might not have the same democracy and values that we have here in the United States, and so that's a whole nother issue of how can we bring these women to play in the United States all year, so they don't have to go to Russia or other countries to play to supplement or even enhance their income. We're seeing a lot too. A lot of women who've been drafted in the first round of the WNBA draft this year have been cut after a few weeks. Their first round picks getting cut, college stars, because not enough roster spaces. So hopefully there's expansion of the leagues. Hopefully there's more money being put into WNBA, because we cannot have a situation like this again.
Yeah, it reminds me of how you'll hear a current professional player say, "Oh, those guys back in the day couldn't compete with us. They used to sell shoes. They
were plumbers and they were
exactly
right.
But they didn't make enough money.
Exactly.
So they had to do those things.
I forgot what player I listened to a podcast recently. I forgot who it was or what podcast, but they mentioned that one of the players was actually selling tickets for the team he was on in the off season to get people to come to the game. Yeah. So he was a player selling his own tickets to the team he was on, and that was, I think, back in the 60s or early 70s in the NBA, which is mind blowing. But that was the realities at the time.
Now they make hundreds of millions of dollars.
I know. I'm like, I wish I still had my hoop dreams at that time.
And they say Tom Brady about to make more money with the broadcasting career than he made in his whole football career.
$375 million reported. I don't know. That's 10 years. I don't know if he's going to do 10 years, but that's a lot of money. So.
He's going to broadcast.
He's going to broadcast for 10 years. He's probably going to do that.
He played football for 20 plus.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So how have you been able to, at this point, again, how have you been able to bring that intersection of sports and politics together in your career, and tell us a little bit more about your new role.
Yeah, my new role, it's definitely a blessing. I mean, for me, most of my background has been really kind of the sports sector or nonprofit or political space. This first time working in tech. We all know how much technology, especially the last 2 years, we depend on technology for communication, the way of work, and how much that can continue to be a dominant, sector in our society. And so for me, I always had some interest of working in tech. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how to code. STEM was not the strongest academic. I was not the best in STEM growing up in terms of college and in high school and growing up. But for me, I was always fascinated about how, once again, very similar to sports, how technology can be used for good to bring people together. And so for me, once again, how can I kind of use a lot of these interests? And so for me, yeah, I am at Buzzard. Buzzard is a early stage startup, is a sports media technology company started in April 2020. We were started at the beginning of the global pandemic. If you think about the date, where our goal is to be the last mile for live sports. You go in, create your profile, select some of your favorite teams and players and leagues that you follow, and you actually get a personalized notification to your phone when amazing things are happening in sports. A lot of times, as a sports fan, I get a lot of my information from Twitter, and I might miss the highlight or miss the dunk or miss the last second play or the game-winning home run or touchdown because I am not watching. I didn't know it was happening, or I find out shortly after it happens. And so for us, our goal is to kind of be on the front end of that, of you getting a notification. Oh my gosh, it's Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan's up, 5 minutes left in the game. Tune in now, and we were able to kind of see that moment live, or we'll direct you to the right broadcasting vehicle or platform that is happening. And also, you're even allowed to. We have a betting partner with FanDuel as well, where people are able to play bets and watch the moments there. So we're still very early. We have partnerships with FanDuel, as I mentioned, as a gaming partner. The NBA, WNBA just launched another season on our platform. NHL, PGA Golf, and so we're really excited for DAZN as our streaming partner, having boxing matches over the last month or two on our platform. So we're really excited for our future. We have a lot of great investors like Naomi Osaka, Michael Jordan, Patrick Mahomes, and many others that are part of our investor group as well. So they definitely believe in the product, believe in the problem we're trying to solve. Our problem we're trying to solve really is discovery of live sports. Right now, we're seeing so many streaming services like Peacock, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus. There's a lot of, it's very fragmented, the live content sports space. And so our goal, how can we be an aggregator of that? And so the work I lead at Buzzard is more of our social impact arm, which is called the Strive Initiative. So it's actually the first product Buzzard built. It wasn't our app that I just talked about. It's actually a mentorship program we created that paired over 500 Black and brown college students with industry professionals in sports, media, technology, and entertainment. So that was kind of bedrock of our company. We founded this mentorship program in summer 2020. A lot of it is our vision of our CEO, Bo Hine, our founder. He really believes in, using the technology for good and diversity, equity, inclusion, and using our platform for change. That's been he really wants Buzzard to be the blueprint of how startups should be founded, that you can create a really dope product, build a really great stable business model, hire a diverse team, and positively contribute to society all at the same time. And those things are not mutually exclusive. And so for us, that's my role, is kind of serving dual facing our social impact arm, which is Strive, our mentorship program. We've committed 1% of our company's net sales and equity and consumer engagement, and even employee volunteerism dedicated to a mission of Strive to advance social economic justice for communities of color. So that's the social impact arm that I'm leading, and also our internal D&I strategy. So once again, making sure that we say Black Lives Matter and our team reflects that as well, right? And so really kind of having that dual-facing role kind of hopefully keeps us accountable internally and externally. So loving my role. I'm 8 months in terms of being there full-time. I love my team. I'm grateful that now, being in a virtual world, I'm able to still live in Detroit, be involved in a lot of efforts and community involvement here in the city, but still be able to work for a great startup.
Okay. Are you all going to get into NFTs?
Yeah, we're definitely exploring a lot of things. I know that's something that we have teams that are exploring everything. NFTs are really big in terms of sports and digital, and so we definitely are looking at everything in terms of betting now, how people consume sports and engage with it, the betting space, NFTs. There's so NIL now with student athletes. There's so many things that, as a early stage startup, we would have to explore all these things and figure out what role that we can play to leverage partnerships, create more more features in our products. I know we are exploring everything under the sun to help with the user experience on our app.
So you mentioned this a little bit with the legalization, national legalization of sports betting, and now all of these ubiquitous apps everywhere now that you can utilize.
Yes.
Do you have any concerns about the legalization of sports betting or the impact it's going to have on society?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things. I mean, I think it's probably better to be legalized than having stuff under the table, candidly. I think something that, I think I forgot what the numbers are, but the fact that, like, black market or off the table betting is probably for sports betting is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's probably better to have that a little more legalized and have more government regulation on it. So I do think there's something there for that for many reasons. Secondly, too, I mean, I'm always thinking through a social responsibility lens. There's always, I know, the problem with gambling addiction, right? And things like that too. And we living in Detroit, we have major casinos here too, right? And I definitely see a lot of billboards and PSAs and different things to talk about how to, support folks that might have those issues, and hopefully that continues to even be more reinforced. So yeah, I'm not a huge better on sports. I definitely use some things through buzzards to test things out, and definitely as part of our app experience. But that's the way people are consuming sports now. It's been a big thing in the UK and London for many years around soccer or football, and that's how people consume it. They have different bars and places that they're able to bet. So my concern, there's definitely the gambling. And also I think something people are not realizing now too is, especially with student athletes or even in professional sports too, just, hey, I place a bet on you, and yelling at the students, I think there's going to be definitely some tension between fans who make bets and along with the athletes who maybe, hey, I'm not playing tonight, or I have a bad game, so I think there's going to be something, hopefully there's a ways to protect everybody involved. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have a solution, but I do see that could be a potential issue down the line, the relationship between the fan and the athlete.
Yeah. Well, that's just, you triggering a lot of stuff here in my head. I'm a sports guy.
Yeah.
But it's something that bugs me now in the NBA is this concept of load management.
Yep.
I mean, I understand the athletes wanting to save their bodies for the playoffs and take care of themselves.
Yep.
But in my opinion, they're also entertainers.
Yep.
And when I spend my hard-earned money to go get tickets for Pistons, Lakers,
and LeBron's not playing.
LeBron's not playing.
Yep, that happened in 2019. I went to that game that I thought LeBron was playing. He wasn't. Yes, I do remember that.
So what are your thoughts on load management? How do we bridge that gap between the players saving themselves and still honoring their commitment as entertainers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm sure that the owners and the players are going to have that conversation once the next CBA happens. Like I said, I'm not on either side of the table, but from what I read and observe in the news, I'm sure that's going to be an issue. It's been an issue. I think Greg Popovich, the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, is like the mastermind, candidly, behind that. And obviously it worked for me. Tim Duncan, Ginobili, and Tony Parker playing for almost 20 years has been really, kind of showing that. But I think hopefully
he still chased away Kawhi.
Yeah, he definitely did. But in Kawhi still lows management. People commit to. I cannot speak on athletes' bodies or how they're feeling. But one thing I do feel like when definitely teams are going to a city, especially they're playing like only one time, like especially the Lakers, Golden State Warriors, teams that only come to Detroit once a year, I hope there's more incentives for those players to play. Lastly, I'll say I remember when the Golden State Warriors came in November here, and I love Steph Curry. Jordan Poole's my man. Go Blue, Michigan, and he balled out, but Steph didn't play, Clay didn't play, Draymond didn't play because they had a game the night before in Cleveland, but I guess they didn't want to play back to back, and so. My solution, if I had my commissioner's hat on, I would recommend maybe finding a way in the schedule to make sure they don't have back-to-backs, or I don't know in terms of the road.
Or at least do the load management at home.
Exactly.
Got 42 times.
And that's exactly what I'm trying. I think the away game is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
I think the away games when LeBron's not playing, and like I said, I cannot speak on their bodies or anything like that, but it would be nice. I just remember going to games, paying money to see certain athletes, especially once in a generation type of athletes like LeBron, and not playing for whatever reason.
Well, we're going to transition now to what we call our lightning round. This is a segment where we ask all our guests the same questions, and they mainly revolve around Detroit and your different experiences in Detroit, trying to build up a catalog of how people spend their time and what they do in the city. So first question is, how do you practice self-care?
That's a good question. A few things. I walk in Detroit riverfront every morning, at least 3 to 4 miles, weather permitted. I do use that time to meditate, reflect, pray, and express gratitude. Inside Detroit riverfront, and get named another year of being the top, riverfront in the country again. And so definitely a gem. So I think just the meditation, praying, walking, getting fresh air, and exploring the riverfront is my form of self-care, especially in the city.
Okay. What are you reading right now?
Reading right now, it's called, I'm going to maybe butcher the name. I think it's called The Jump. It's a book from Larry Miller. He was the former CEO of the Jordan brand. Now he's the chairman of Jordan brand, but talks about his journey being a black man in corporate America and kind of being in these rooms. But his story is very interesting because he actually murdered someone at the age of 16, being part of a gang, and spent several years in jail and never told anybody about it. And, now this is all coming out. But he's definitely a power broker in the sports, basketball, Nike, Jordan kind of intersection. And I'm someone who he was the president of the Portland Trail Blazers as well. And so he's definitely, especially from being a black male, looking up to him and kind of, following his career over the last decade or two, and now having his memoir. I'm reading that right now.
I have to check that out. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier you're listening to a lot of podcasts.
Yes.
What are you listening to?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of basketball and a lot of politics. I really candidly try to get away from cable news with CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I think a lot of stuff is very hot takes now, and so I try to get more facts. So I listen to NPR up first every day in terms of just getting my daily news. At least gets my fix there. I read a lot too. I listen to a couple of podcasts. In addition to this one, of course. Knuckleheads is the basketball one I really love. There is Knuckleheads. There's actually a really good one called the Icons Club that focus on the history of the game of basketball and from Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Dr. J, Jordan to Kevin Durant and Kobe and Shaq now, kind of documenting this whole Iconics Club that goes through who's part of it, some of the greatest players, how do they interact with each other, how do they kind of pass the torch. That's actually really good. It's under the Book of Basketball podcast umbrella with Bill Simmons and those folks, the Ringer over there. But it's a really well done series too. So the Book of Basketball Icons Club is another one that I'm listening to regularly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What are you watching when you watch TV?
Right now, NBA playoffs, candidly, right now. But other shows I'm watching are Atlanta, even though it's not Detroit. I watch Atlanta. It's a great show, FX, with Childish Gambino being the creator there. I was watching Insecure with Issa Rae. I know it just ended the end of the season, or the whole show just ended in the fall. But those are kind of the main shows, Atlanta and NBA playoffs every single night. I think it's 40 games and 40 nights. So I've been watching it, at least we'll be watching it through the finals right now.
Who do you think is going to win it all this year?
Of course, I'm excited for the Pistons and Cade in the future. Obviously, we're not in it right now. The lottery's next week or next Monday. So hopefully we get a top 3 pick. But my hat's Golden State Warriors. As I mentioned, I love Jordan Poole. Steph Curry is one of my favorite players. A quick Steph Curry story back in 2008 when he kind of blew up on the national scene at Davidson College. Those games are at Ford Field here in Detroit. I think people don't always remember that, the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 game. So my parents took me to that game. It was the first time going to a NCAA tournament game and watching him live and just balling out. And for me, I'm a Steph Curry fan. I need to find a Davidson jersey, and I've been following his career ever since then. So my hat is on the Warriors this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When you go out to eat, where do you go out to eat in the city?
Yeah, so my girlfriend and I, we're a big wine. We love wine a lot, so wine and dinner. And so a lot of spots we've been going to, combination of both. I'll go with the wine shops really quickly. Just the House at Piervin right down the street on Woodward. Black-owned, a really great spot. The Royce as well, minority-owned wine shop too. So I've definitely been exploring that. In terms of eating, definitely I love Layla, Vesa, San Morello, some of those spots. But I got to go back to the classic Savannah Blue. I know it's owned by some great family friends, Black-owned establishment, and I just love it. And Detroit Vegan Soul as well. So those are two of my kind of go-tos on a regular basis. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So
I probably go out way too much, and that's why I need to lose a little more weight as a result.
That's cool because we've been getting a lot of I don't go anywhere now because of COVID. But so separating and going out to eat, but when you go out to socialize, where do you go? Yeah,
in addition to the wine bars I mentioned, one thing is I think it's a gem still, the Detroit Institute of Arts, the DIA. It's a beautiful building, beautiful artwork. It has a great black art exhibit, African American art exhibit. I just love the DIA. I love spending time in Kresge Court, solid food, get drinks, explore different exhibits. I'm also supporting it because I'm also on the board of the Founder Juniors Council, which is the Young Professionals Board for the DIA, and trying to get more young professionals to be, active in the museum. And so for me, I'm a really big advocate of the DIA and spend a lot of time there.
Okay. So you probably said this, but this leads in. A friend of yours is coming into town to visit the city.
Yep.
What is something they have to do while they're here?
What they do is here. I mean, if they've never been here before, I think DIA for sure. You got to go to Motown. I think you got to go to Motown Museum, Hillsville, USA. I think this is very iconic. I hope they have an opportunity just to walk around, explore. Even doing that walk through DeQuinder Cut to Easter Market on a Saturday morning when it's spring or summer. I think you just see the most diverse people. You just see, I think it's the best of Detroit, candidly, is that. I tell them to go there. I would recommend my wine spots I mentioned. If they're able to sneak away, if it's a Michigan sporting event, depending on time of the year, I would recommend a Michigan football Saturday, drive 45 minutes west. Other places I would recommend, there's this new spot called Spotlight. It's kind of like a nightclub, a lot of outdoors on the east side of Detroit. I love that. And then lastly, hopefully do a kind of walk or home tour. There's so many beautiful neighborhoods that are iconic, whether it's Boston Edison, where my mom grew up, Palmer Woods, Sherwood Ford, a lot of beautiful just walking around. And I would recommend, I love doing this, walking different neighborhoods. I take a lot of photos of really historical homes I think are very unique to Detroit, very unique to our country, and something that we should be very proud of.
Okay. And the last question is, where can we find you?
Where do we find me? You can find me on a few things. You can find me on the riverfront. I think a lot of times in the mornings I might not say anything because I will, usually in my meditation mode, but always willing to say hi. But no, you can definitely find me on Twitter, Dexter C. Mason, if you want to follow me there. I'm also on LinkedIn, the same thing, LinkedIn/Dexter C. Mason, I think is the LinkedIn. But definitely LinkedIn and Twitter are probably the best ways to find me. I'm really active on both. I respond to DMs on both as well. Then always happy to grab coffee, wine, talk about Detroit, Michigan sports. And like I said, I love this city. I love this university, and I'm always going to be a cheerleader and champion of it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dexter.
No, thank you. This was cool, brother. No, thank you. No, I love this.
It's good to see you again.
I know it's been way too long. It's been 3 years. It's crazy,
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been way too long. No,
there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dexter Mason. You've been listening to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, review, and like, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
Go Blue. No, go Blue. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center, and you can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, review, and subscribe. This podcast is directed and produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Taylor Henniger, with writing contributions by James Neely and Leah Allen. Thank you for listening.